Welcome to 39-Minute Conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
Hello. Hey. I'm not hearing you. Mm-mm.
About now.
There you go. I can hear you now.
Okay, my microphone is not working. That is weird. Great start.
Concerning, right?
All right. Yeah, very concerning. So this might sound a lot worse than other episodes, but thanks for staying with us anyway.
Yeah. Do you want to try to fix the mic or?
I don't. I want to go ahead and I want to start because we're here.
39 minutes.
We don't have much time, so
right.
it goes so fast. So the first thing that I have to do is I do have to go ahead and get through an ad read real quick, and then
go for it.
Really excited to talk to you.
Do you want me to help you?
I mean, if you feel like chiming in, you just go for it.
Just go for it. I'll chime in.
Yeah, man. Whatever, go where your heart leads you. Today's episode of 39-Minute Conversations is brought to you by this year's flu shot. Look, it's no secret. I'm a fan of vaccines. I think they're important. They've eradicated or reduced the instances and lethality of a lot of dangerous diseases. They got society up and running again after COVID-19 hit. I already had my COVID booster, but yesterday I got my flu shot, and I don't know what's in it, but I'm guessing LSD because it kicks like a mule. Last night I had the most intense nightmares I've had in a long time. I'm talking getting chased by these zombie alien things. I'm talking accepting my imminent death while watching my child at home get destroyed. This morning I woke up tired, achy, confused, but I also woke up better protected against the flu, and I'll take that. So if you need to get your flu shot or COVID booster, and you also want to experience the most terrifying, vivid dreams outside of an ayahuasca trip, visit vaccines.gov or make an appointment with your doctor or pharmacy. That's vaccines.gov. And then
Great.
Thanks, man.
You know, that's funny. How funny would it be if I was like, I don't believe in vaccines. I think it's bullshit.
It crossed my mind that was a risk, but
that is hilarious. Yeah, as you started, I was like, oh man, that would be what a nightmare. There's a real life nightmare for you if we get into that conversation.
I mean, I would have that conversation with you. It would be a weird one, but I would be excited to do it. But you're on set and acting so much. I figure you've got to be.
It's not even an option.
Yeah, I didn't think
not
so.
Not even an option.
So this is 39-Minute Conversations, and I'm your host, Brian T. Arnold. It's a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. And I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I'm not going to be paying for Zoom Pro. And you've already heard my guest, so I want to give him a proper introduction. He is a very talented, very funny, very prolific actor that you've seen in, honestly, so many things. Movies like Together, Rainbow Time, Fun with Dick and Jane, and Imagine That. TV shows like The Mighty Ducks Game Changers, On the Verge, Blunt Talk, One Mississippi, Till Death, Drunk History, Enlightened, 6 Feet Under, Undeclared, and more. And soon, you'll be able to see him in the Disney Plus series Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Timm Sharp. Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. It's always so weird to hear your credits.
That's what, yeah, I feel the same way.
It's very, it is what it is, but yeah, there's a part of me that's very like, oh, I don't deserve this attention, you know? It's, I don't know what that comes from.
I was talking to a friend of mine about that because this has already come up on the podcast, I think, but I'm in a fantasy basketball league with everybody in it is also film, TV people. Mm-hmm. And the guy who started the league did like the intros to like introduce us all to each other. He used our bios from the internet. And I had the longest one and the least amount of credits. So I just felt like, you know, it's weird to like, you're trying, I think when you get successful, as you clearly are, it's almost like, okay, get to it. I know what I've done and everybody knows what I've done. But like when you're like you're starting out or new in it, it's like, no, but you need to hear everything about me. You know?
Right. What about my special skills? I can juggle.
You didn't even mention improv.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a crazy business that we're in.
It's a weird business, but I rather like it. And you've been in it for a while, and
20 plus years now.
20 plus years. I did watch. I rewatched Undeclared for the first time in a while,
No
and
kidding.
I realized I was like, this is 20 years old. Like
Yeah, dude. I was a kid. I
you
was
were
21, I think, when we shot that.
that's so
Seth
wild. Like, yeah,
Seth
go ahead.
Rogen was 18. He was 18 and he
Yeah,
was writing.
yeah.
He wrote and was in it. Anyway, yeah, that's wild.
It's so crazy because I mean I did watch that show. I don't think I saw it when it was out because obviously it was not handled that well on the
Yeah,
network.
you're not alone.
Um,
Also, a thing called 9/11 happened. Like we were supposed to premiere, I
oh my
think,
God.
in October of 2001.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that
when 9/11 happened, it was like it got pushed. You know what I mean? It
yeah.
got pushed
So
for
we
a little
can't
while.
so there's a lot of things to blame the terrorists for, and
Yeah,
that's definitely one
thanks.
of them.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Osama bin Laden.
um so I do want to talk about Undeclared and everything else, but first thing I want to talk about, we got to know each other a few years ago doing improv, became friends
Yes,
that way, but
yes.
we were always performing and rehearsing. We didn't really do a lot of one-on-one stuff. So I'm excited to get to know you and for audience
Likewise.
to get to know you better as well. Um, you're from North Dakota,
I'm from Fargo, North Dakota.
Fargo, North
Yes.
Dakota. What was it like growing up in Fargo, North Dakota as like how early did you know you wanted to be an actor, and was that weird kind of growing up in that kind of an area?
You know, I knew when I was I think I was in the ninth grade when I
Mhm.
decided that I was going to be an actor. And um, before that, eighth grade, I did a play and immediately fell in love. And then I just like put all my ninth grade chips, whatever, I put all my chips on the table
Mhm.
and just went for it. And I like did everything. I did all the high school plays. I did the community theater
Mhm.
plays.
Sure.
I went to this summer performing arts school called Trollwood Performing Arts School, and they would put on a main stage musical every year that
Mhm.
was like pretty high caliber production value. And like, it was an outdoor amphitheater that would have like 3,000 people a night,
Wow.
come to these shows. They're like
Yeah.
big shows. So I would do those, and then I would do like college plays. I like did as much as I could. And yeah, so I had a lot of support in Fargo, but it definitely it's not like what everybody's doing.
Sure.
Not
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, you know in fact, I think they just lost their arts funding in
Oh,
that area recently.
that stinks.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bummer.
I grew up in West Virginia, which was similar, like not what you'd expect. It's not I was very lucky that I had very supportive family and friends, but for the
Right.
most part, it was like, oh, I felt like, the weird artsy kid, and like
Yeah.
I'm eventually going to have to leave here, I guess.
Yeah.
And you went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York.
In New York City, yep. When I was 18, I moved directly after I graduated high school. I think a couple of months after I graduated, I moved to New York and just went to this acting conservatory there,
Mhm.
the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Did
What about
you?
you?
So I wanted to go to film school. I thought about it.
Mhm.
I did not we didn't have a ton of money when I was growing up, and
Same.
and yeah, it's hard. And then I so I thought about film school. I thought about, the loans that would take, and I was a little nervous
Mhm.
about it. And I happened to graduate at a time when West Virginia was offering like students who went to an in-state school, like, we're just going to pay your tuition for you because we're really tired of people leaving West Virginia, like, to go to college.
Right.
So they're like, oh, we'll just pay your tuition if you just stay here. So I went to an in-state school and I studied broadcast journalism because I was like, that's close enough, I
Right.
guess. Like,
That's
it's
some on camera.
cameras, it's some
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cameras, it's some writing. And then actually
Wow.
after, yeah. So then
I
after
did not know
college,
that. So you studied broadcast journalism.
I did, yeah. I was actually after college, I was a news producer for a little bit in a Bluefield, West Virginia television station. I was the morning
No
news
kidding.
producer, and I realized I pretty quickly that I didn't like it, and then I did have to give this a shot. So that's when I came out here. Um, I'm curious. So you went straight to performing arts school. Did you ever have a backup plan, or were you like, I'm just gonna go and then I'll
I just
figure that out later?
I didn't have a backup plan, and I have to acknowledge that I got very lucky, extremely lucky, because right away, right outside of, well, the acting conservatory I went to has a there's like it's a 2-year program to graduate, and then they ask a handful of people back to be part of the company,
Hmm.
and then you do a bunch of plays, and they showcase you for managers and agents. So I got a manager through the
Hmm.
company, and they started sending me out on things. And I think my first gig on TV was on that show Spin City with Michael J. Fox way
Sure,
back in the day.
sure.
And then I did some commercials. And I did a total cereal commercial that was a national total cereal commercial.
Hmm.
And around that same time when that was airing, my manager got me an audition for this untitled Judd Apatow project.
Great.
And so I was like, oh, cool. All right. It was just another audition. I wasn't even familiar with Judd Apatow at
Hmm.
the
At
time.
that time, not a lot of people were. I mean, Freaks and Geeks is obviously beloved now, but
Right. Freaks
back
and
then it
Geeks had
was,
just been canceled, I
yeah,
think. And I think, he was probably known in the industry,
right.
especially for the Ben Stiller show.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, so or also the Gary Shandling show that's
Yeah.
what is that? Larry
Sanders, Larry
Sanders
Sanders.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so I auditioned for that in New York and didn't hear anything. I went and I shot this like really low budget movie. And while I was there, I heard that I had a callback for to meet with the producers for that.
Hmm.
And so then I went in and I auditioned. They had me in there for an hour and a half, and they
Jeez.
had me like improvising with Loudon Wainwright III, who plays
Hmm.
the father on the show.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I kind of walked out of that callback like pretty optimistic. And then
Yeah.
they flew me to LA to test at Fox, and then I ended up getting it. So then I moved to LA, and that's unheard of, like.
It's, I mean, luck is obviously a part of pretty much everybody's story. I think, especially if you're coming from places like we were, that you don't have these connections. I think luck,
Right.
I think you can't discount luck as a thing, but it's also like luck is, you have to be ready for it when luck finds you. And clearly you
Exactly.
were. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God I like took these auditions seriously. I was ready. And
Hmm.
I had no improv training at the time, but for whatever reason I was able to improvise like in that like intense environment, which is pretty remarkable.
I was going to ask about that because, yeah, like improv is how we got to know each other.
Right.
But so you didn't take any improv at all, like ADA or anything. You were just thrown into
No.
the fire with, the Rogans and in front of Apatow, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna have to figure out how to do this. And
That was like my school. That was my
yeah.
improv training, basically, was at during Undeclared. They would let us play, with
Hmm.
the scenes. And so like we all kind of just, that's how I learned how to do it, more or less. And but yeah, then once Undeclared was over,
Hmm.
there was many years where because I didn't even know improv was a thing. I didn't even know there was such a thing that you could go see a show where they just make stuff
Sure.
up. And so whenever I would be asked to oh God, my God. So Judd asked me to do a table read for Anchorman.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
I got to be part of the table read, the original table read for Anchorman,
Hmm.
for like, the studio and all that.
Was
And
this the like infamous like original script with like the monkeys, the plane crash, and all of that, or was this after
well,
that?
there was the original script, there was a whole storyline where Fred Willard's character, he played the head of the studio. He
Hmm.
has a son who was robbing banks, and he would rob banks, and he would do like a fake newscast to the security cameras,
Hmm.
right? And I think there's like a hostage situation or something, and he would only talk to Ron Burgundy. So they did like, anyway, so I played the son.
Okay.
And I played him so horribly that they cut it out of that whole storyline out of the
I'm
movie.
sure that's not on you.
I don't think it is, but the whole point I'm bringing this up is because Judd was like, hey, um Adam McKay and Will Ferrell want to run through like some of the scenes with you before the table reads. So like I went over to Adam McKay's house, and like I'm 21,
Yeah.
I know improv training. These guys are like improv. They practically invented it, right?
Yeah.
Especially Adam McKay. And
Yeah.
so they were like, we were reading through a couple of the scenes in the script, and they're like, all right, just riff off that, just riff on that. And I had no idea what that I was like, like, and I think they could tell right away. It was like, oh, this guy has no training whatsoever. And so yeah, that kind of kept happening, because I would get more auditions for things where people would ask me to improvise, and I would just kind of not do a great job, because I would either like, well, I think after the first couple, I was like, oh, they want me to just make stuff up. I would just go bananas. I would just go nuts. I would make the stupidest shit up and be like, am I doing it? Is this improv? Right? And anyway, so I made a fool of myself quite a few times doing that. And then finally, after the first season of a show I did called Enlightened, Jason Mantzoukas invited me to a show at UCB. And I was like, what kind of show? And he's like, oh, it's just an improv show. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, that's just me and a couple other people just making shit up on stage. I was like, what? Really? So I went and I saw that, and I was so enamored and blown away by that. I was like, I want to know how to do that. I want to know how to do that. And I don't even know. This was in 2011, I think.
It had to be
Perhaps.
around. Yeah, I think it's around there.
Yeah. So yeah. So it took me 10 years to finally
to know what improv was and to train at it.
To even know what it was, right?
That's really fun, and like that's interesting to me because like it sounds like, and I obviously this is the case, you've done a lot of comedies, and you were in these rooms with people who were, improv legends, improv like comedy directors who expected you to riff. Did you know when you started out that you were going to be like comedy leaning, or did that just kind of happen and you found yourself in it? You did?
No, I was pretty sure. I'd always been my wheelhouse. Comedy has always been something I've been naturally good at, I think. And yeah, and I just happened to fall into like the best hands with Judd Apatow and all those guys, like right off the bat, and I'm so grateful.
And then after Judd Apatow was obviously like, well, let's talk about Enlightened a little bit too. Because obviously Undeclared is both shows are beloved, especially after their time. Unfortunately, they're both shows that people loved when they were watching them, but not enough people were watching them. How, when people find those shows later, is it like reassuring, or like is it more like, I told you guys we were making good shit? Why did, like, is it almost frustrating? Like which way does it lean a little bit?
I think it's more reassuring. It's I think by the time people do catch on to something good, I've already, and so is everybody else, moved on from the frustration of the show getting canceled or whatever. But yeah, I guess it can be a little like, oh man, that would have been cool if you guys were around during the airing of it. But I try to stay in a pretty humble, grateful place as much as possible, because it gets easy to like get really like resentful in this business, So like when it comes to stuff like that, I veer far away from being too, like angry about anything, because that's such a gift to have done in the first place,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good attitude to look at it with, because it is easy to, to taste that first bit of success and then like, well, wait, like where's the next one? Like, it's always that like next rung. It's always that chip on your shoulder, especially in an
Mhm.
industry like this that you just
Yes.
feel like you have to move on to the next thing to like stay in people, stay in front of people and all that.
Hmm.
Um, with so, but there is a thing, like you did talk about like trying not to look back, but at the same time, nostalgia shows are really big right now. Like
Yeah.
everybody, like you just did one. You were on the new Mighty Ducks, the Mighty Ducks reboot.
Yes.
And there have been, today I think a trailer dropped for that 90s show. Like
Oh, wow.
every big show or movie, it feels like is trying to come back in some way. Are
Oh,
there any
yeah.
characters or shows that you've been a part of that you'd be excited to bring back and check
Oh,
in on?
yeah.
Or
Oh,
yeah,
for sure. Like, I mean, Undeclared, to do that guy again, see what he's
yeah,
up to, that would be such a dream come true. That'd be so fun. And Enlightened, to continue with that guy as well, would be a blast. Um, yeah. I mean, I love that. I love seeing shows that went away
hmm,
years ago and will come back. Like, literally, that show, The Comeback,
yeah.
was one of the best examples of that, in my opinion.
Oh, I totally agree. I love the comeback. I don't think I'll admit I'm guilty of, I don't think I watched it when it came back yet. It's still, it'll happen and then it'll come back again after the word gets out on the
Yeah,
second.
we're waiting. They're waiting for you to
They're waiting for
to
me for
finally
the
watch.
to do the comeback. Um, but you see, so as an actor,
Mhm.
like how attached do you get or can you afford to be in how something succeeds or fails, or I'm sure you have to be somewhat removed from it, but at the same time it is an emotional thing.
Yeah, it's odd because the longer I I do this, the um I hate to say it, but the longer I do this, the less attached I get to the outcome of
Mm,
things.
sure.
I think that's because history has told me that that does you no good,
Hmm.
because you don't know what's going to happen with a show, even if it's like an incredible show. Like, I did a show called Blunt Talk that
Hmm.
was with a great group of people who created it. Jonathan Ames created
Hmm.
it, and I'm still extremely close with all the cast, with the cast, my castmates.
Yeah,
And like, that show was such a fun show, but that no one saw that show, and that show had like everybody in comedy in it,
it
and
did.
Patrick
Yeah.
Stewart.
Yeah. Who is doing more and more comedy lately? I
Yes.
think he's enjoying it.
Yes.
Um, Speaking of, you have worked. I mean, obviously, when you started, you were kind of thrown right into the fire with like, oh, this is Judd Apatow. This is, you're working. It, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this the right way. You've worked with giant celebrities.
Right.
You've worked
Yeah.
with, Eddie Murphy and Jim Carrey and Laura Dern and Patrick Stewart and all these amazing people. How quickly did you have to get over being
The
starstruck, and or is that still a thing that happens to you?
Oh, it's definitely still a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Like, for sure. Um, when I was younger, like with Will Ferrell, and or Adam Sandler, that was
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I remember doing we did he did a couple episodes of Undeclared, and like a couple years after that, I want to say I was at the MTV Movie Awards or something
Okay.
like that, and backstage, and Adam Sandler was like walked by, and he was all like, hey man, and he like came over and gave me a hug, and I was like, oh, whoa, thanks man. It was just like, oh yeah, we've worked together. But you forget that sometimes with these super celebrities. Yeah, I mean, it's still I think once after, I don't know, a couple hours of being on set with someone, they're just people that are doing their job,
Yeah.
and you start seeing them more as coworkers, and not as, the whatever legacy that brought them to where they are.
Yeah, I think your brain has to do a thing where it just like it can't be overwhelmed forever, and I think our brains do a pretty good job of like accepting the reality that we're given. Like I obviously haven't been in a lot of the rooms that you have, but I have had, meetings with actors and other writers and directors who are much bigger names than I am, and it just became like, oh, I just have a Zoom with this person a day. Like eventually, it just kind of had to become that, because otherwise,
Yeah,
it's just a little overwhelming to. So I think your brain's
totally.
almost protecting you from, like, you don't even think about it. Just the person you're
Yeah,
talking to today.
exactly. And I think that's an important, I think it's, I imagine, I mean, I don't understand. I have no reference to what it would be like to be that famous or whatever, but I would imagine it's less weird for them,
Hmm.
if you're less weird,
Sure.
if that makes sense. I don't know.
But you are, I mean, it's funny that you say, like, people I mean, obviously, like Jim Carrey, Eddie Murphy, they're Patrick Stewart, they're just on a different plane of
Yeah,
existence than
yeah.
everybody. But you've been in so much, and you've got to. How often do you get recognized out into the world? It has to be pretty
Uh,
often.
Not that often, but when I do, I think because I'm so conscious of, like, I don't want people to feel weird.
Hmm.
So, like, if I notice they're nervous or something, or if they're acting whatever, I like go out of my way to make them feel totally at ease. And like, I remember once, this was back in, I don't know, when I first came out to LA, and I was hanging out with other young Hollywood people, and somebody came up to an actor. I won't say who, but they came up to an actor and they were like, "Oh my God, I'm such a fan." And this guy was like such a dick. He was just
Hmm.
like, he's like, hey, I'm trying to like talk with my friends here. And it was just like, I never want to be like that. I
Yeah.
never want anybody to feel like shame for I don't know. I just, that seeing that was such like a lesson. And also, I don't know if you know who Sean William Scott is.
Hmm. Sure.
um I did a movie with him right after Undeclared, and he is one of the nicest guys in the world, like the nicest guy
Seems like it.
in the business. Same with
Yeah.
Will Ferrell. I'd say, they're, ask anybody and they'll be like, oh my God, they're so nice and kind and not, full of themselves, really.
Hmm.
And you see how, like, they treat people, and it's inspiring. So I don't know, I just went on a weird tangent,
No,
sorry.
that's really no, that's really nice. I appreciate that. Like, it kind of leads into a question I was going to ask, and but you've already kind of said it, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I don't know how to interview people very well.
You're
But
doing great, man.
oh, thanks, bud. Um, do you? I mean, you've obviously done a ton of great stuff, but at the same time, like, two of your biggest things were, not biggest, but like, but most beloved things are 20 years ago and 10 years ago, respectively.
Yeah.
Do you get annoyed with people asking you about, like, things that are that far in the past, or are you like, oh no, that's cool, that's the thing I've done,
Yeah,
versus,
yeah.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
Anytime anybody, like, uh is complimentary for something I've done in the past, I'm on board. I'm into it.
I was hanging out
Do
at
I
you.
are you asking if
Go ahead.
are you asking if it, like, makes me feel self-conscious or something because it was
I'll
so long ago?
I'll phrase it this way, because I was at UCB once, and there was
Right.
an actress who I also won't name, and a student came out of the show and was like, "Oh my God, I loved you in this show," and then she was like, "Oh, that's so nice, thank you," and then they left. She was like, "That show was 30 years ago. Like, I'm on this. Like, why are people not, So
Yeah.
I just wonder if, like, does it get old for you to hear about things that you did a while ago versus things that you're doing now?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I I think anybody who's supportive is I'm a fan of them, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, that's really nice. I'm glad to hear that, because I asked a lot of questions about this Enlightened and Undeclared. So I waited
Oh,
long
yeah.
enough that, after I asked those questions, I wanted to find out if I annoyed you for the last for the last half
No,
hour first. Okay,
you
great.
will never annoy me, Brian. You'll never annoy me.
Oh, that actually just warmed my heart a little bit.
Good.
Um, as a writer, and this is something that, like, I'm watching your. I fancy myself as somewhat of an actor, but I'm not. I'm not a real one. But I watch, your Marshall in Undeclared, and sorry, we're running out of time. Let me click that out. We have 10 minutes left.
Oh, cool. We're
I
killing it.
know we're so killing it.
Damn,
So
this is going by fast.
39 minutes goes by so quick.
Yeah.
So all these roles that you do, they're these big characters usually, but you always find a way to ground them in like an emotional, real place. Like they're very funny, but they're also real. Um, how do you? Let's start with there. How do you approach that kind of role where like this is a big character, but I know I have to bring humanity to it?
I guess I like this show. I did a like a sitcom in front of a live studio audience, that type of show called Till Death.
Right.
And that was a perfect example of that, because I had to play like this, this like super like I played like a hippie dude, who's
Okay,
very like,
sure.
into like, energy and nature and, the spirit and all that. But he was also like kind of an idiot. So like sitcom acting, I think, I don't know. I honestly don't know how to answer that question other than just over exaggerating, I guess, the reality.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Because I was like, it really hit me when I was rewatching Enlightened, because it was like,
Right.
Dougie is a big character.
Oh,
Dougie
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot. Dougie is, could be very unlikable in a lot of hands.
For sure.
And you walk that line really well of like, no, this is still like a vulnerable person
Yeah.
who just he's screwing everything up, but he's not trying to.
Right. So
When you're Go ahead, go ahead.
with Dougie, my first day on set, the director, um Miguel Arteta, he pulled me aside after like I did a couple of takes, and he was like, hey, don't try to be funny. Like, I can see that you're trying to be funny. Don't just like really, believe what you're saying. And that was like one of those moments. It was like, okay, yes, all right, okay, I get it, because I didn't know what the tone of the show was. I didn't,
Sure.
so like, and that little talk he gave me sort of made me go back to like my old acting school not tricks, but like techniques, right? Like, what do I want in the scene, that type of stuff, as opposed to just trying to be funny in a scene. So like, I have to credit Miguel Arteta for my performance.
When you're looking for a role, like what pop, a lot of writers, I'm a writer, a lot of writers listen to this, a lot is relative, but what do you look for in a role on the page? It's like, oh, this is just something that I know I want to play, I have to play.
It's really not so much the role as much as it is, I mean, I guess it is the role. I don't know. It's like, if something feels real, then that's all I care about. I really like reality stuff. I like stuff to feel real, and then it's up to the writer to write some kind of situation that's going to be ridiculous or funny.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you that. But yeah, I guess I look for opportunities to make this character mine. And that's the most fun I have as an actor, is like making a character mine. Or I don't know, like I did a table read recently for this character that was very like type A, right? And that's not me at all. And so like I had a good time like messing with that. I guess it's just anything that challenges me. And
Yeah.
anything that makes me step out of my, who I am, I guess, slightly. I'm attracted to that.
That makes sense. Because, like, yeah, like, it's just the kind of thing you're told as a writer is like, oh, this has to be like all movie star roles. Like, movie star will want to have to play this. And
Right.
I don't know, like, it's cool to hear that, like, just the tone of what the script is, and then, like, opportunities to do good things as the character are, you're not looking for, like, how can I be cool? Like, what's the
Yeah.
cool thing to be in this scene?
Yeah. I mean, maybe some actors do look for that. Like
Yeah.
I wrote a thing, and it was like one of these things where it's like, okay, I could either play the lead or the brother,
Hmm.
right? Because realistically, we should probably get somebody a little more well known to play the lead, right? So I wrote the brother also kind of for me. So, but I also was aware that maybe somebody famous could play the brother. So
Sure.
like I made the brother like this very fun character that was like a psychic medium, and he was
Sure.
like a recovering drug addict. So there's like all kind, I put all the
All the meat
those
into that one.
all the meat and potatoes into that character. Yeah.
Um, it's something I meant to ask you up top, and just because, like, this is just on a personal level here. We
Yeah.
haven't seen each other in a few years.
Yes.
The last few years have been, what they've been. It's
Rough.
been weird. It's been rough.
Yeah.
Just dude, how have you been? Like, I've been asking you questions as an interviewer. I think I got
Yeah.
frazzled by my microphone at the beginning. I wanted just, how have you been the last couple of years?
How have I been? This pandemic has been really, I mean, these past 5 years have been on so many levels crazy
Yeah.
and challenging. And I would say that I I think when life is challenging, that's like when you really get to know yourself
Yeah.
in a way. Like for me, this past few years have been super challenging in that respect. But I now know myself and I'm more comfortable with who I am than I ever was before.
Hmm.
And so for that reason, I am kind of grateful that that there was a pandemic and that
Sure.
whatever has happened.
What did you pick up, any, like, hobbies, or, like, what did you do to keep yourself sane when everything shut down for a little bit?
Oh boy. See, well, this is the thing. I'm a bit of a hermit
Yeah,
as
me
it
too.
is.
Me too.
So like I was like, oh, this is great. This
Hmm.
you know. Um, but yeah, so like woodworking. I like to mess with Japanese woodworking tools and
Oh,
stuff, and
wow.
do like
Okay.
Japanese joinery and stuff like that.
Do you still paint?
Not so much. That was something
Okay.
I sort of like I spread my artistic seeds thin. I don't know.
Sure. Because
To
I
cast a
was
wide artistic net.
I was just curious, because I told our mutual friend from our improv days, Jenna, about
Oh my
that we were going
God.
to be interviewing. I was going to be interviewing you, and she was like, "Oh my God, tell him I still have my painting of my dog on my wall."
Holy shit. Wow. That's one thing I've been doing. I've been rescuing dogs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Got 4 dogs now. So
Wow.
two of which I've found. One I found on the way. One I found at a gas station, and another one I found in the neighborhood that was everyone was trying to catch it for like 2 weeks, and finally I got it. Anyway, and then we got a
um,
minute and a
we got
half.
a minute and a half, so I want to use this time right now. If you have anything that you want to plug in particular, or anything that you want people to follow you on socials or anything like that, if you want to drop
God,
that here. I know you're not a big social guy
I don't
anymore.
do socials at all. I mean, I have
Hmm.
I have socials, but like I don't really check them or do I don't
Sure.
they're I don't even know why I still have them, to be honest.
Fair.
As far as plugging something, no. I guess because you mentioned Percy Jackson. That's gonna
Yeah.
be a cool show. That's
It
gonna be a
Yeah, let's talk about
very
that real
cool show.
fast. It also reunites you with Jason Mantzoukas.
Mantzoukas and Jay Duplass
Yeah, what
and
can you tell us about it that's not going to get you in too much trouble, but just a little bit?
um honestly, if you've read the books,
Yeah, that's fair.
you're gonna get you're gonna get you're gonna be happy.
Yeah.
They're doing this right. It's so cool. We've been shooting on a volume stage.
Oh yeah, I've heard of those, like
It's
Mandalorian, and
crazy,
yeah,
dude.
that's cool.
It's crazy. Crazy.
It
It's
seems like
easily
it.
the biggest production I've ever been involved in. It's wild.
Oh man, we're about to get cut off any second now.
Well,
So I was
Brian,
gonna like real
I
fast.
love you, man.
Dude,
And I'm
Tim, I
grateful
love
for
you.
this. I'm grateful that you wanted to interview me. And
Dude.
let's call each other after this so we can actually catch up.
Let's post game it for a minute,
Yeah,
and that'll
yeah.
be really nice. Usually at this time.
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.